raised and continue to raise in display. Whether there is enough quality inventory within these systems, whether this kind of market system ultimately means RTB is really race to the bottom in terms of pricing and quality, what will lead publishers to push inventory into these systems. The same questions that we are engaging at every show on display and on ad technology have now migrated into video. And maybe the answers are different, maybe they're the same, but to take the lead on engaging where we are with video RTB, we have Krizia, Manzano, who is the manager, client, and media strategy at MORPHEUS Media. She's seen her fair share of media plans. She's done planning across a lot of premium fashion and beauty brands like Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, SBC, and she also works with them to bring branding across some of the demand-side platforms that have been evolving. Please welcome Krizia.
Hi. Thanks, everyone, for staying on this beautiful Sunday. For all those going back to Manhattan, it's actually going to be 68 degrees tomorrow, so whip out your bikinis, everyone. It's officially spring/summer. So as Steve said, I'm the manager of client and media strategy at MORPHEUS Media. And, you know, we represent a good gamut of brands there, ranging from fashion and lifestyle beauty brands, such as Guess, Moda Operandi, New York Times, and also Vimeo. And, you know, although they have different campaign goals where, you know, one is more focused towards branding and one might be more direct response driven, what they have in common right now is really they want to make an impact out there. And what better way to do that than with video? So, I mean, that's why we're here today, really. And the best part about our discussion is that we're kind of marrying two of the most hottest trends in media today, which is video and programmatic buying. So we're here to discuss video RTB. For those of you that haven't really dabbled in this space, video RTB is really purchasing, you know, an impression on real time through a programmatic platform and serving a targeted impression to a qualified user. So with the help of our panelists today, I'm hoping that we're going to go through really the growth of video RTB right now currently in the space, where those challenges are, and, you know, what the future is of video RTB. So I'll have my three panelists introduce themselves quickly, just really name, where they're from, and how they kind of dabble with that video RTB space right now.
Hi, I'm Patrick Bonomo. I am head of networks for US for Spafax Networks, which is a startup within 10th Avenue, which manages all of the out-of-home properties for WPP.
My name's Gian Lombardi. I'm the SVP of Eastern Sales for YuMe, which is a digital video advertising solutions provider across multiple digital screens. As what many would consider a multi-screen video ad network, we are oftentimes at odds with sort of the RBT world, which I'm happy to get into in more detail.
Hi, my name is Mukund Ramachandran. I'm the General Manager of Video and Brand Advertising for DataXu. So DataXu is a programmatic marketing company. We build software that makes decisioning across multiple media formats like video, display, both across the auction world as well as the direct world possible. My job within DataXu is to basically look at the RTB video business, or run the RTB video business, and brand solutions business. So I have some insights that I'd love to share.
Great. So with video RTB still relatively new in this space and dependent on where you're really, you know, pulling your research standard metrics from, it's seeing a growth of 20 to 25% in 2013. And I know my advertisers have dabbled into the video space, whether or not it's custom integrated solutions or standard pre-roll or investment into Hulu. But really, who in the landscape right now are you seeing is investing in this type of buy? Anyone?
Sure. A couple of things. So a few things I think are interesting. Actually, we're seeing, so if you look at the Forrester, came out and actually said that in 2013, programmatic video is actually going to grow 72%. Oh. The overall market is growing about 36%. So if you think about the market, online advertising is growing from about 3 billion to 4 billion. Programmatic is going to be about 700 million of that. So it's about, it's a 72% growth. It's about 2x the market growth. So I guess part of the question you're asking is who's doing it, right? I think there are two stats here that at least for me are quite interesting. About 48% of the brands that do online video today do online video programmatically. So half of them, right? If there are brands here that are doing, half the brands in this room are doing it. So that's an encouraging side, especially where I'm sitting. Who's doing it? I think a lot of people are doing it. Big national advertisers are doing it. Like you'd be, 12 months ago I couldn't have said it, but today lots of really smart national brands that really care about performance and analytics and what really happens when they run their ads are doing this today.
Gian, have you seen a lot of advertisers from your perspective invest in video on TV?
As a video ad network, we're oftentimes a direct competitor to DSPs, RBT buying solutions. I can honestly count on one hand how many clients I feel like we've seen make a pretty big jump into the space. And not surprisingly, those are behemoth advertisers like P&G, Unilever, Kellogg's, who I think are doing it more out of data ownership concerns than necessarily out of efficiencies in terms of their brand results.
My point of view is that I'm taking, or my initiative is about using the out-of-home screens that exist on a consumer's journey, and using those screens as they hold 15 and 30-second spots and looking really at an audience solution. So I view an RTB and a DSP as being the infrastructure that allows us to do that, so we're able to message consumers on the path to purchase. And the type of advertisers that are interested in that are really a lot of retail clients. Automotive seems to be a really large player, and financial services.
So it seems like it's really the big players that are like first to adapt. That's not really a surprise because they have the largest budgets. So in terms of really where that would sit and who's actually purchasing this type of media, would it be the TV folks or people in the digital agencies such as ourselves? Because, programmatic is such a huge space right now. They're offering a lot in mobile and tablet and in video. So, is everything going to become integrated in terms of really agencies coming together as a whole and purchasing media together in this space?
So from my perspective, I see the big buys coming from the digital agencies, folks in this room. But what's also happening is, so I think the question is, I don't think programmatic is going to drive, the fungibility of budgets, so to speak, right? And I think video at some point will make budgets fungible. And if that happens, programmatic will follow, where you don't really know where the money is coming from. It can be from, quote unquote, a TV pie or an online video pie. So we're seeing budgets today coming from digital advertising agencies. And I think the reason behind that is, so really think about this, programmatic buying on display started in 2007 or 2008. So there was a whole lot of plumbing that was put in place. And then programmatic buying in video started in right earnest in 2011. So it's about 2 years old. And what video actually did was just basically used the plumbing that the display world had really put in place and then said, wait, here is another format, largely similar. We need to make some changes, but we can do this. So which is why a lot of buyers that are comfortable with programmatic buying are actually buying coming from the digital agencies, the folks that are in this room today.
Yeah, I think as agencies begin to plan video agnostically, it breaks down the barriers of like who owns the budget, and it's more about where the strategy begins and what is the best way to reach that consumer. So I see it slowly breaking down, but I just think video in general is more about understanding how it can augment any plan. And in my world, it's about the extension of an online video buy and the extension of a local broadcast buy. So it's really less about the tactic and more about the consumer and the audience that you're trying to reach. And the infrastructure that RTB and DSPs provide is the enabling of that hyper behavioral targeting in any environment.
So I would tend to agree. I think what we are seeing at a number of agencies and advertisers is sort of screen agnostic approach to video planning, where increasingly TV buyers are no longer titled TV buyers, they're video buyers, and they're really attempting to do that across all of the screens where they can get audiences at scale. So I'd probably say about half the market, you're seeing a shift towards TV buyers starting to take over. With respect to RBT, though, it's almost its own very special class. Traditional digital planning and buying groups inside of agencies are typically not engaging in RTB. In fact, it's the very specialized trading desk that's been set up that is focusing attention on buying and selling there in most cases.
Yeah, I would agree.
So it seems like there's going to be like a common ground somewhere along the way where TV buyers are just in general video buyers, and we are going to be using all different sorts of platforms to, you know, purchase media and really evaluate strategies for our clients. But obviously you guys have all three different perspectives on the video RTB space. So I mean, this question is for Gian and Mukund, and you know, what are really the benefits of investing in a traditional video network versus, you know, a programmatic buying platform?
So why don't I let Gian take the traditional video network part?
So, you know, I think it was in the intro we heard a lot of the concerns over does real-time bidding, you know, work in the display world, right? And that's, you know, that's a question that I think is still sort of playing out. I think for real-time bidding to work, you need exchanges that have a product that is relatively commoditized with lots of liquidity. And you see that in the display world where there's, if you look at ComScore, there's about, I think it was 620 billion page views in the month of February. Now, if each one of those page views has maybe 3 or 4 ad positions on it that can be sold, you're talking about a couple of trillion ad impressions available on a monthly basis. Now, if you look at video streams, that number is an order of magnitude lower. 43 billion streams in the month of February. And those are pretty much one-to-one, one stream, one ad insertion. So where there is a much different supply and demand curve in display versus video, you do have to wonder about what kind of quality can be attained and what kind of publishers are putting inventory onto exchanges, premium inventory that's much scarcer. So just from a supply and demand standpoint, I think the two are markedly different, and that needs to be considered. So back to your original question, you know, what benefits do we bring? You know, as a network, we've spent the last 6 years really developing deep partnerships with many publishers to ensure that we have a quality supply of video inventory available to our advertisers. Furthermore, you know, we've gone through a very rigorous vetting process on the quality of that inventory, the historical performance of that inventory, the reliability of that inventory to offer consistent inventory levels for full delivery. So we've taken a lot of that complexity that an agency or a trading desk would assume on their own by engaging in real-time bidding or programmatic and made it much simpler for them, right? One call, one IO, full delivery, here are the results you wanted, here's some of the more strategic research we put into the plan, here's something you can take back to your client with confidence that their objectives were reached, as opposed to, you know, let's do it all ourselves, let's figure out how to pull all of these various levers to make it work. So I guess it's really a question of what business does the agency or the advertiser want to be in.
And it's really that amount of personalization that you guys have to offer, and the advertiser's comfortability with the platform as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the benefits we bring is, as a network, is we still simplify what is still a very complex landscape. We take a much more strategic approach to understanding what objectives are and delivering against those in a fairly seamless way, as opposed to, you know, going out and trying to do that on your own through tool sets against exchanges where there's sort of a different layer of inventory that's available.
So talking about programmatic, okay. So a couple of things, I think, you know, a few things are interesting, right? So lots of things are repeated. One is the fact that the inventory quality probably sucks, right? So you'll hear this a lot of times. So if you think about what happened in the display world, display is an inventory type that can easily be increased by site instrumentation. So you had one page, you could put a second page, right? And then all of a sudden you had 2 ads. And therefore there was a supply glut, which basically caused lots of monetization models, exchanges happen. On the video front, you really can't do it, because if I want to put another ad feed in front of you, I kind of need 4 minutes of your time or 3 minutes of your time, right? So you don't have 3 minutes more to give as a consumer. So you're right. So in that sense, the inventory growth is not as dramatic as it is in video. But what we're seeing is that today, every week, there are marquee publishers that are not in this room, that are really big publishers, that you guys do direct IOs with, that have their inventory available via the open exchange. Today, this is happening. Like, literally every week, and we can send it. Number one. And number two, there's also a misunderstanding that programmatic buying equals RTB buying. Okay? So programmatic buying is not, programmatic is not about basically where you buy. It's about how you buy. Right? And it's a fundamental distinction, which is basically to say, if you're a brand advertiser and you want some kind of business outcomes to happen as a result of this, some kind of KPIs. So today, the existing tool set is to say, okay, here is my premium inventory that I'm going to do a direct I/O with. Here is my other set of folks that I'm going to do programmatic I/O with. That doesn't need to be that way. Programmatic is it's a methodology to buy inventory, even sometimes if it is directly guaranteed with you and the publisher. And say, here are all the things that I know about my consumers, what my consumers do, and here's how I'm going to decision this. Sometimes it happens across the auction world. Sometimes it happens across the private world. Sometimes it happens across the direct guaranteed media scenario. So I think there is a misunderstanding that programmatic equals RTB. It's not. Programmatic is a methodology to buy inventory, which is sometimes private inventory, sometimes auctions, and sometimes direct sold. In that sense, I feel like it's not an argument. At least from where we sit, today I'm sure there are car launches or CPG product launches that are in this room that you guys plan for when you've got 50 IOs going on. And if you think that is a viable scenario for the next 10 years, I'd question that assumption. It's not going to happen. You'll probably have, and we see more and more advertisers say we want 10 of them, we want 8 of them, right? And I think that's a trend that we see consistently. So I feel like as a trend, you'll see very similarly where you'll have fewer, more interesting buys that actually result in business outcomes. And I think that's where programmatic comes into the play.
I think that's a key point because it's really the education process. And I think that because the media companies don't come from a technology background or a data background, it becomes difficult for individuals to understand the methodology and the algorithms and how things are weighted. And that becomes a challenge when you're trying to sell that it really is to your benefit. So from a programmable perspective, you can score behavior types and look at a brief that's coming down and say, my core buy needs to be within these environments, my top SKU buys need to be in these environments, and my reach extenders would then be in these environments. And very easily you can begin to apply those dollars and move dollars about. Because there is apprehension about losing control over that I/O or how the dollar is being spent, or quite frankly, how it fits on my flow chart, or those types of behaviors that are inherent within a media team, it does become challenging to help the client.
So it looks like you guys kind of mentioned a few challenges that you are encountering right now with, the space and having, this media trend be so fairly new. I mean, what are the most common outside of really, agencies not having the technology or not having marquee publishers and not really having that quality inventory? Like, how are you going to address all those different concerns? Like someone as, from the advertiser perspective and the agency perspective is supposed to evaluate.
Well, for us, it's become establishing a common currency. So we have taken all of the traditional media tools that a media shop uses, whether that be MRI or Nielsen, and we've created indexing that is digestible. So I can say to a planner, this target is indexing for this audience at this number and has a composition of this, which translates into their mind how they would normally buy. And then that algorithm is then applied to the inventory that we have in hand. And also we're doing behavioral targeting, so we've taken the best that the online world has to offer from a display perspective and have overlaid it into different environments to allow us to track back to a GRP. And I think that when you take that and math into consideration and what helps them to understand, it makes it a lot more digestible. That's from my point of view.
So from my point of view, I think it's 3 things. first. This will be a turn on the microphone. Yeah. So basically, it's education. I think we still haven't convinced you folks on the other side that programmatic is all that you want it to be, and it's fully transparent, and it's great inventory and other stuff. We haven't convinced you of that. That's my first biggest problem. Our second problem is, to Patrick's point, the lack of a common currency. And I think it's not just for programmatic video, it's for video in general. So I really don't know if you want to buy GRP, or if you want to buy engagements, or if you want to buy completions, or if you want to buy all of that with viewability. And if so, how are you measuring me against the other folks on the plan? I really haven't understood that. So that's a second problem. And the third problem, I think, which will probably take time, is what will happen is, as we're seeing more demand come on from the advertisers, we're seeing more publishers fall from the supply side as well. And I think that's going to happen. So which means every marquee advertiser, a lot of times a marquee advertiser will join, quote unquote, the programmatic rank and say, you know, I'm making this up. I want this national broadcaster to make that inventory available to us. And that opens up a conversation, say, hey, what about, you know, this advertiser wants to buy programmatically from you. What do you think? And that really changes the dialogue. So I think there is a little bit of a supply side that will happen. But again, from what we can control, I think it's currency and education from our side. And those are the big impediments from my point of view.
Yeah.
And Gian, from your perspective, if there is a need for demand, like what are the publishers doing on their end that you've seen so far to kind of meet that from advertisers?
So what are publishers doing to increase available inventory?
Yeah, so right now it looks like it's primarily in-stream video that's available in video RTB. If this is moving into, you know, a huge growth into video RTB,
sure.
You know, how is YuMe going to address that across their platform?
Sure. So one thing there that I would qualify, I think the majority of the inventory, at least low-cost inventory that's available through exchanges, is going to be in-banner inventory. Very easy to take a 300 by 250, convert that into an in-page video experience, and there's tons of that inventory, right? So that's sort of low-hanging fruit for what I would argue is a lower quality from a persuasion and branding standpoint ad unit. So there's tons of that. It's where you have somebody opting in to watch a piece of video content and place an ad in front of that content as a legitimate in-stream pre-roll, that there's real scarcity. That's not to say it's not growing. That's not to say that, you know, the consumer trend towards consumption of that content is clearly defined, and it's more than a trend. It's sort of a fact of life at this point. So what are publishers doing? You know, they're pursuing syndication strategies, making their content available on other sites is a big part of what they're trying to do. That at times can create quality and alignment challenges. Obviously, there's heavy promotion of video content, making it something that's very prominent on a homepage of a site. So publishers are certainly desperate to increase the quantity of higher quality in-stream pre-roll inventory that they have available. And you know, to the extent that inventory does find its way onto the exchanges, I think they're still attaching a pretty heavy premium on the price. So it may be there, it's just not going to be any cheaper on the exchange than if you did a direct deal. So, you know, that's I think an answer to the question. An attempt.
So an interesting point, right? So a couple of things from our perspective, Rick. So I think pure pre-rolls, right? I think one of the things that, you know, that maybe it's a clarification from our side is pure pre-roll available on the exchanges today is a substantial amount. Just to give you a sense of scale, we're integrated into 5 exchanges. We've got access to about 15 billion impressions a day. That's about, you know, I'm just making some numbers up. Let's say it's about $10 price, just for the sake of simplicity. That's about $1.5 million a day. So we can do a substantial amount of business. And by the way, if folks are concerned about the fact that they start pre-roll, you can block 300 by 250 sizes. You can do a bunch of stuff. So today, controls exist and scale exists for pure pre-roll. And I think it's a misconception that it doesn't exist, number one. Number two, the next question of, so what else is there? So OTT, for example, the previous panel talked about OTT. Today there are companies like AdRise, like IOTV, that today have OTT inventory exchanges where you can programmatically buy inventory. Right? That's number two. It's happening today. Companies that Patrick's from, there's opportunity to start enabling programmatic buys that go beyond web and TV, outdoor space possibly, right? Programmatically. We're in conversations with some linear TV folks to talk about their addressable TV inventory and how you can enable those buys programmatically. Right? So literally think about this. I mean, I envision a situation where 5 years from now, you will buy linear TV at the household level programmatically. Right? So again, this is truly, screen agnostic video. You'll have pre-roll, you'll have OTT, you'll have outdoors, you'll have TV, and you'll be able to decision those things programmatically, which goes back to Patrick's point, okay, we better figure out what the common currency ought to be so that we can transact against all of this. But I think that reality that across all these things, stuff is happening programmatically is real today.
So it seems like, measurability has been, a huge discussion point across all of the panels, across the 3 days, really. And for a branding perspective, for video, you would initially kind of look to engagement or CTR to really measure success. But in the video RTB space, it's kind of a different story because RTB is typically seen as, direct response driven, conversion driven. So what would the form of measurement be for advertisers? And do you think that there will be a common ground? Should there be? Should we all work together to kind of find, the absolute universal metric for video and really measuring that awareness and branding?
So, at a very base level, I think the go-to metrics are still, unfortunately, click-through rate. It's amazing how many brand campaigns get evaluated on that. But video completion rate is another metric that gets looked at pretty regularly. I think that's a really good proxy for how good the content actually is that's following the ad, because it's an indication of whether consumers are sticking around through the entire ad to watch it. But for most brand advertisers, at the end of the day, they're trying to sell something, and most of the brand dollars that we see, they're trying to sell something in the physical world. It's not something they're selling online. So, for a CPG, the holy grail is, a panel study to look at offline sales lift as a result of online exposure and to measure that. That's expensive. There's constraints around how that can be done. So a lot of times, brand metrics are looked at a good proxy for that. So brand survey metrics like awareness, recall, purchase intent, persuasion, those figures come into play. So that's an important component of measurement, and that exists today. It doesn't necessarily allow for real-time optimization, because typically if you're going to measure consumer perception or even offline sales, there's a lag, and you need enough sample to make an informed decision. So it's not something you can do in real time. So that's a little bit of a challenge, and that's a challenge for all media. But the other big shift that we're seeing, and I'm sure many people in the audience are familiar with it, is if you're trying to convince an advertiser who's very heavily invested in television, they want comparability, right? They want to know they reach their audience. They're using demographic as the primary proxy for did they reach people who are going to be interested in their product. And so we're looking at Nielsen, online campaign ratings, or ComScore, Verified Campaign Essentials, VCE, as sort of the currency with which we're measuring audience delivery. And so that's a big trend, and we're seeing more and more of that. And what's really interesting there is you could buy all the best third-party data in the world, and you can even have great first-party data, and you can target a campaign to nothing but a cookie list of people you know are in a certain demographic, and both Nielsen and ComScore will tell you you only reached a fraction of the audience you thought you were reaching. What's interesting is Nielsen has licensed the Facebook registration data as their currency. I've heard stories where even when Facebook is targeting against their own data, the comp against the target audience is only in the 80–85% range. So something is clearly changing when you move from a panel to a cookie list, and that creates a challenge for, I think, the whole industry.
Well, that's one of the challenges that we've addressed at my company is really the aggregation of various data sets that are looked at differently, that could be treated in a silo, that can lead a buyer to go one path. So we spent a tremendous amount of time over the last year really looking at the calibration of those data sets and looking at, how to look at a panel versus syndicated research versus cookie pull versus location level data, and we feel that we've compiled the best solution available at this moment in time, but we know that it's constantly evolving. And again, that goes back to the education of we're not dealing with research analyst at a media shop. We're dealing with buyers and planners who have a very specific role in the ecosystem. So it's almost, you're coming from an outside perspective. It's very difficult to break boundaries that have existed for years. People know what they know. They buy what they buy. They buy what the client wants to buy. And it's the introduction of those new methodologies and ideas that need to filter through in order to have people become more comfortable with alternate solutions is really the challenge that I face day to day. It's there. So if I go through lots of press, MediaPost has done a great job in keeping up with our developments, but we've partnered with Nielsen, we've partnered with a mobile location level data provider, we've partnered with MRI, and we've been able to aggregate that data in a way to create an index. That's never been done before in the industry. But still, although we're using tools that are very common, it still is challenging for people to translate that information.
So, from a metrics perspective, I think the spirit. Is should we find one common, right? I don't think, honestly, this panel or we're nowhere close to it, right? So the view of the world is there are basically, at least my view, is there are three types of metrics, right? One is what's called ad delivery metrics, impression delivery metrics, reach, frequency, typically how TV is transacted at. Then online kind of moved that little bit to the right, if you will, and said, I want to go about ad-based metrics, clicks, completion rates, interactions. So we're still closer. But where the clients are actually are here, business outcomes, right, which is sales, awareness, favorability, things of that nature. So a whole part of our conversation still seems to be whether we should be in the left or in the center, but we ought to be in the right. And for that reason, I really don't think we solve this problem. We can probably get to a GRP metric, in which is TV comparability, or we can get to an interaction rate metric if we can somehow show a proxy that says interaction rates equals sales or equals brand health or something along those lines. Any studies that we do is not going to be universally accepted or universally agreed upon. So I feel like this mechanism of what to buy on or what to measure is unfortunately going to be there for the longest time until we can actually figure out how it affects business outcomes. TV has gotten away with it as a transaction mechanism, but then if you walk into any CMO today and you tell him, stop your TV, he'll say no. I know for a fact, and we've spoken to CMOs. CMOs will say, if I stop TV today, I know people aren't going to walk into my dealership this weekend. I know that. So I don't need your research to tell me that. I've seen that happen over and over again. So TV, even though they have not transacted that way, it still delivers some value. Until we really figure out how we actually deliver that kind of value, I think we'll just be kind of nipping in the margins here. It's not where the real action is and the real money really is.
Yeah. It's really tying it to the shopper data. So once you go through all of that and you know what the lift is, so you can inform reach and frequency, you can inform, click-through rate, you can inform engagement levels. But it's one of our focuses really is influencing the consumer on the path to purchase in various environments. So I am extending what that behavior is happening in the home, what behavior is happening on the laptop. It then transfers to a mobile phone, and now I'm out about in my day engaging with 46%, consumers engage with media about 46% outside of their home. How to seed content throughout the course of their day to allow them to engage to ultimately being in a store and what they're buying. And that's really, that is the problem. I think RTB and programmable is a way to, shorten the funnel, narrow the type of consumer that you're trying to target, and as a mechanism on which to do that.
Great.
No, some really good points. If you can measure the business outcome online, right, an online sign up, a conversion, a lead, a purchase that happens online, I think there's a huge role for programmatic because you can work on that data very quickly. You can optimize accordingly. And so there's that opportunity. But, for most big brand advertisers, the business outcome is an in-store purchase or a purchase in a physical location, right? So media mix models come into play, and how you actually move the needle inside of a media mix model, oftentimes has to do with the level of investment they're putting against a particular medium. So it's almost a chicken and egg problem. But the good news is that I think advertisers who have been looking at that and looking at that closely recognize that online video is a very powerful ROI tool for them in driving offline sales. So thinking about it as a branding tool as opposed to just a DR tool in the online vein.
Before we head into questions, I guess just one key takeaway for the audience for video RTB would be great from each and every one of you, and then we can get into questions.
I'll start. It's not the future. It's today. 20% of the money is transacted that way today. So it's not what's going to happen. It's what's happening today. And if you're not thinking about it actively, you ought to.
While there's absolutely a role for it, I think at the end of the day, advertisers who are committing large brand budgets to initiatives are going to want more of a human element to their interactions, their investments, their campaigns, the reports, the analysis. So while I think there's a place, I don't worry that the human element will disappear anytime soon.
I think the biggest challenge is helping people understand innovation. I think most clients look to their agencies to bring innovation. And I think helping clients to understand technology where they may not be able to, that they should lean on their partners to help them establish that trust.
Great. Any questions?
Joe Mandisi from MediaPost. I'd just like to follow up on Mukund's point and ask a question about the constraint right now and the scarcity. We saw data yesterday that indicated only 14% of video actually has any advertising attached to it online. You add in the OTT things that we're talking about. You add in what Patrick's developing in the digital out-of-home marketplace. You add in Internet of Things, where literally every thing will have a screen and a video experience attached to it very soon. Don't you think the same elements that drove the supply of display is going to happen, and that the only way that people are going to be able to manage that morass of inventory is through programmatic, whether it's RTB or some other pricing mechanism?
So I hope you're right, because I work in programmatic, so I hope you're right. But I don't think it's going to be that much because of the attention scarcity. And again, it's a hypothesis. Like, who knows, right? So, like, for example, the inventory curve in video has not followed the same inventory curve in display. That's the only data point I have. That is not to say that the inventory curve is not healthy enough, right? 50% year over year really adds up extremely fast. In 5 years, it's a different ballgame. But I don't think it's going to be like display. That's the only sense that I'm saying is, like display, you will see literally 300 billion impressions available on a daily basis to transact on. Video, you see 20 billion impressions on a daily basis to transact on. So not a healthy growth, but it's not going to be display-like. That was basically a large point. Yeah.
I think one of the challenges there is not every video impression is one that a brand is going to want to be in front of. A lot of the video streams that are occurring, I couldn't give you the exact statistics, but I know that YouTube is about 40% of the total streams. A good chunk, I can't give you the exact percentage, but a good chunk of YouTube is user-generated content that a brand isn't necessarily going to want to be in front of. So the quality issue becomes an even more important one in video when deciding whether or not you want to be in front of a particular clip. And you can leave that to the machines and hope you're in front of what you expect to be in front of, or you can actually do some curating, some review to ensure that you're going to be in front of good spots.
So, I don't want a quick point of this. So the hypothesis seems to be that programmatically you can't do stuff for brand advertising, right? That seems to be the hypothesis here. So I'll share this because it's a public case study. Lexus launched the LX brand 2 weeks earlier this month, right? Nobody would argue here that Lexus cares about where their brands are run more than anybody else, or probably as much as anybody else. The Lexus LS launched used a branding campaign with programmatic video this year, and their performance programmatically, finding the right audience that registered a brand lift based on a survey response, was comparable to any premium buy, including that of Hulu and everything else, right? So today, the hypothesis that for branding, you can't do programmatic, unfortunately, isn't true. And there is case studies, public and otherwise. And, Bob Allen at Kellogg's is another great example. He comes out and talks about it automatically. Lexus, I mean, these are real brands. They're real money transacting for branding dollars that are happening today. So.
Hi, Hillary Coleman from MEC. So I think as many people as you ask what is programmatic buying is as many different definitions of programmatic buying as you get. So I would just sort of ask the panel, Mukund, you seem to be very specific about it isn't what most people think it is. So I would just want to ask everybody who's up on the panel, how would you define programmatic buying? And if we're not thinking about it in the right way, how should we be thinking about it?
So if I should start, so I'll tell you what it's not. Programmatic is does not equal remnant, does not equal cheap, does not equal low quality. Programmatic is the use of data for making media decisions. Data can be cookie data, can be context data, can be any other data, content data. It's the use of data of making cookie decisions, and basically making decisions at a scale that is just impossible for humans to do so.
Yeah, I would agree with that definition.
Well, I think the literal definition is accurate. I mean, then essentially any media partner you go to who's cookie targeting a campaign, which would just be about anyone you could buy from, would fall under programmatic. So I would certainly say, yeah, we can call that programmatic. Where I think most people think about programmatic and how I think sort of in practical reality it works is where the buyer is in a very automated fashion purchasing inventory through an open exchange model or potentially a private exchange model in a highly automated fashion. So it might not be cookie based, it might be, but if we define it in that realm as inventory through an exchange, I think it sort of better maps to the realities of the ecosystem today.
I would just like to know how many people have actually seen a user interface for a programmatic platform, right? So it's relatively click, target you're looking for. There's a whole bunch of data that's behind it that's helping to inform that decision. It populates what inventory that you should buy. It looks at the price that's associated with it. And then you do all of the things that you would want, the DMA. It's just that in itself would take a planner days, if not weeks, to figure out and to finalize, where here it's just aggregating the information and lining it up for you and trusting that it's making the right decision.
From the agency standpoint, my definition of programmatic is really, it's an overarching tool that we can use as an option. It's not just specific to programmatic exchanges. I feel like I met with a vendor the other day that pretty much eliminates the job of account executives. I hate to say that so bluntly, but he presented a tool where you can actually go into the system, look at CPMs, premium CPMs from publishers such as like a New York Times or a New York Mag, and really just see the transparency just through that one platform. So I feel like programmatic is just an overarching definition of the different options that we're coming out to the market right now, whether or not that's in the DSP realm or in an exchange. I think it's all just a general term for everything that enables you to kind of cut that personalization in a sense. It sounds a bit harsh, but it's really, what Patrick was saying. You go into a tool and, you're pressing a lot of buttons, to really kind of maneuver everything yourself and managing that campaign.
Krizia and panel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to continue this in our roundtables in a second. Thanks. Before we break for the roundtables, once again, bus will be leaving. Bus is starting to board at noon, and we'll be leaving at 12:30. There will be food on the bus. I want to thank everybody over the last few days, all the speakers, all the panelists, you guys for great questions, and I think a really fine weekend. We're always looking ahead to what the next stage is, what the next summit should look like. So please, we love your input. Grab me, send me a note online, send a note to Joe or PJ online, or talk to Ken about what we might do for the next summit. We always regard these shows, because we're doing them regularly, as sorts of ongoing conversations. So we're always asking after one, what's the next stage of the conversation? And especially in summits where we have people come